This is HBR News number 522, Erin Pizzey on end-of-life treatment, SPLC and ADL on notice, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everyone and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian. I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Hannah Wallen and Dr. Ranimercam. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comments section. On this week's HBR News, we're going to be talking about the latest news, because there's a little bit of confusion around it, regarding the GOAT of men's issues, or at least one of the GOATs. There's a lot of GOATs, but she's one of the big ones, Erin Pizzey. And because there's a little bit of confusion and we want to clear the air and sort of like get into what's going on with her. Cash Patel says the FBI will be cutting ties with the ADL and the SPLC, and we have more, so stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So this could actually be its own real show. And maybe, I don't know if it's of interest to anyone that works here at HBR, but I think it is relevant. So I discovered one of the, I guess you could say, one of the final bosses of wokeness in our media and culture, or feminism in our culture. And it comes back to this organization called the Gina Davis Institute. Yes, that Gina Davis, the actress from Beetlejuice and Cutthroat Island. What's the one with the female baseball players and Thelma and Louise?
A League of Their Own.
A League of Their Own, yeah. Thelma and Louise. The Fly.
If you look at some of her previous films, this
Long
is
Kiss
not
Goodnight.
a surprise.
No, for sure. She has a website that essentially acts like a kind of enforcer group that pushes various, let's say, institutions of culture in a certain direction. As I understand it, they have a tremendous amount of influence, and they're actually potentially where Sweet Baby Inc. comes from, as an example, or like they are the brood mother of the Arnita Sarkeesians and activists in our culture in the world. So we're gonna go through the website, the Gina Davis Institute.
I can't wait for them to drive themselves off a fucking cliff.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, we're going to be looking at that. If you want to join us for that, please consider becoming a Badger yourself, because there's a lot on this website, and we're going to have a lot of fun reading through it. But if you want to check it out yourself, you should. I put a link to it in the Patreon page for today's show. So go there. Everybody can access it. It's free. But if you want to join us for the discussion, go to feedthebadger.com/subscribe to set up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord server, where you'll be able to watch all of the additional content and watch the shows live, like the patron show that's going to come on right after this one ends. And if you give it higher levels, you can actually participate in the discussions with us and give us a piece of your mind. And, so like you consider doing that. That's feedthebadger.com/subscribe. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we've been yeeted from the internet, then go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to find where all of our archived content lives. All right, let me just pop up the Discord, because I forgot to get the Super Chow channel set up here. Again, if you want to send us a Super Chow, you can send us a direct message, which is not going to get censored or otherwise controlled by Google or YouTube. Go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message at any point during the show. All right. So with all that out of the way, let us get into today's stories. So Erin Pizzey, pictured here, the trailblazing British activist that founded the world's first women's refuge in 1971, is currently, well, for a while there, yesterday, we thought that she had passed away. Now we know that she's old, and this was kind of like something that was coming, but turned out that has not left this mortal coil yet, but she is gravely ill and currently receiving end-of-life care in a hospital. according to a statement from Janice James, MBE of Good Egg Safety CIC, an organization closely tied to her legacy. This clarification came amid widespread online reports. There were updates to Wikipedia and tributes from men's rights activists that announced her death on October 4th, 2025, at the age of 86. James emphasized that Pizzi remains seriously unwell and under urgent medical attention, urging supporters to hold off on assumptions while keeping her in her thoughts. So, Erin Pizzey, if you guys don't know, and you really should, often hailed as the mother of the domestic violence shelter movement, has left an incredible mark on global advocacy for abuse survivors. Her most groundbreaking achievement was founding the world's first women's refuge in Chiswick Women's Aid in a rundown house in Chiswick, London in 1971. This initiative provided a safe haven for women fleeing domestic violence, inspiring the establishment of thousands of similar shelters worldwide and fundamentally shifting public and policy perceptions of intimate partner abuse as a societal crisis rather than a private matter. Beyond shelters, Pizzi authored influential books that amplified survivor voices, including the 1974 bestseller Scream Quietly or The Neighbors Will Hear, which drew from her direct experiences and became a catalyst for legal reforms. She also pioneered support for male victims by opening the first refuge for battered husbands in 1974, and challenging gender-based narratives or gender-biased narratives in the 1980s through writings like Prone to Violence. Her work extended to international lecturing, policy influence, such as contributing to the UK's 1991 Children Act and founding organizations like the International Network for Family Violence Intervention Programs. Despite facing threats and exile from the UK in the 1980s due to her views on reciprocal violence, her advocacy has empowered generations to address abuse holistically, earning her recognition from diverse groups as a trailblazer for equity in victim support. So she is not gone, but it looks like she's on her last legs potentially. So I just want to clear it up because yesterday I heard from, I think it was Mike Buchanan, sent out a memo saying that it was on the Justice for Men and Boys website saying that she was no longer with us. But they apologized for that. And Mike Buchanan said, oops, turns out Erin hasn't passed on. A relative has emailed R with the following: Hi, redacted. Erin has not passed on, but is in hospital on end-of-life treatment. It may be that my brother's posts on Facebook confused from people. Imagine if Erin knew, she would probably find it funny. For now, she is as comfortable as she can be, but understandably wants to go home. Kindest regards. So
I heard about the exaggerated rumors of her death yesterday, and I looked into compiling some quotes as is tradition. But now that we've heard well, not good news, but the partial retraction of the bad news, I don't want to talk about her like she's dead, even if she is. If she's in an NHS hospital, and she's probably going to die any second now, and not because she's on end-of-life support treatment, but because she's in an NHS hospital, presumably. It pains me to think that in her final moments, she's experiencing a fate worse than death. British hospitals in general are typically run by feminist zealots who, having found out who Erin Pizzey is, they're probably rushing to give her the same treatment they gave her dog all those years ago. They didn't kill her dog, by the way. They shot it, but it didn't die at the time. It's a small detail, and it certainly doesn't mitigate the severity of the incident, but I hear that detail bandied around a lot, and I just want to iron out that wrinkle. And in a way, I'm glad that Erin's legacy is a relatively humble one that only made her famous in sort of small esoteric circles like ours. Even though she's been honoured in the Order of the British Empire, a CBE, no less, a commander of the Order of the British Empire, and she's almost certainly the only men's rights advocate who will ever be bestowed with such an honour. It's a saving grace that her legacy is not so infamous that she can't be spared the kind of demonic vitriol that the infamous can expect. I'm sure there are some demons out there who are already giving her the Charlie Kirk treatment, already digging through her body of work, looking for any threadbare excuse for justifying her death and suffering. But they're so few and far between that I have been spared any exposure to them as of yet. And it's probably very difficult for the demons on this occasion because they don't know what to make of Erin Pizzey. While feminists all over the world were invading universities, convincing everyone to hate men, Erin Pizzey was actually putting boots on the ground and achieving something, actually devoting her time and her space and her life to helping women who were vulnerable and overlooked. But then she did the unthinkable. She also devoted herself to helping men who were vulnerable and overlooked. And that sent feminists into a tailspin because their whole worldview necessarily excludes the very philosophical existence of men who are vulnerable and overlooked. Such adjectives are anathema to the male gender in the feminist worldview, and this worldview has continued to ravage its way through our civilization in the 50 years since. And yet, Erin Pizzey continued to fight against it for 50 years, even in exile. Sometimes we like to casually brag that we've been doing this for a dozen years or more here at Honey Badger Radio, but it's hard to imagine if any of us will have a tenure in this business as long and as steadfast as Erin Pizzey, the OG Honey Badger. So yeah, I don't want to talk about her like she's dead. I want to talk about her like she's listening to me right now. And if you are, Mrs. Pizzey, and you might be, we have met each other that one time in Norwich, and we hugged each other with that mutual look of recognition at knowing of each other's work. I am hereby raising my glass to you, Mrs. Pizzey. I'm raising every glass I have, even the glasses on my face. Fucking, here you go. I'm going to see if I can survive for another 40 years so I can keep doing this, come rain or shine. Like, I don't want a statue built of me. I don't want a state funeral with a 50-gun salute. I don't even want a knighthood or a CBE. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. And there's every chance I wouldn't be here doing this right now were it not for the OG Honey Badger, Erin Patria Margaret Pizzey. Live long and prosper.
Yeah, I want to know what a pioneer Erin is. Anytime we talk about anything, a lot of times it's stuff I've heard Erin talk about in the past. And yesterday I was going through and posting as many of the interviews with her as I could find on YouTube. And I was going through and listening to bits and pieces of some of them as I was posting. And I ran across one where I think back in the 70s or 80s, she talked about the UN connection to feminism that we're talking about right now on Thursday nights on HBR Talk. And it's like, even when I have forgotten that I've heard her talk about something, it's still there. She understood more about what was going on during that time, I think, than many of the rest of us. And she had her eye on feminists for quite some time and what they were doing. And I mean, she had to, because of all the threats and because they did come in and take over what she was doing, took it away from her, pushed her out of it, and changed it so that men couldn't get the help that women were getting with their circumstances of domestic violence. And people, if you haven't had an opportunity to hear her speak, you should search YouTube. I believe there's also videos on Rumble. People may have even put her speeches up on TikTok, for all I know. I don't use TikTok, but you should hear the things that she has said, because she's had quite a bit. She's talked about quite a bit, and there's a lot to learn from this woman. I can't emphasize that enough. If you're new to the movement, look up her name on YouTube and just start listening. Don't listen to anything the ex-patriarch says. He's an idiot and he lies about everything. And there's a good video on Blue Orange debunking his claims about Erin Pizzey. But that guy is basically full of shit. But listen to what Erin says about herself and what she says about her history. Look at some of the old videos that show her actually at the refuge, and of people interviewing her during the time frame that she was running the refuge, and you'll see what I mean. There is a wealth of knowledge, and of course, if you pray for her and her family, because everybody deserves and needs prayers at the end of their life. And it is sad to hear that she's in this condition, and I am glad that she is surrounded by family. So, yeah, and everything that Mike said, on top of that, just the best way to love and support and remember Erin is with prayer, and go listen to her, because record of her voice is widely available.
Yep, she is one in a million, that's for sure. So, but she is for now still with us, although I felt that I would at least cover the story to sort of clear the air on any confusion, because there was some confusion about it. And fortunately, the reactions to the misinformation were, generally very supportive. And now there's a sigh of relief, at least for now. And we will follow up if there are more developments, obviously. And yeah, well, I will, we'll get back to you then when that happens. In the meantime, let us know what you guys think about this story in the comments. In particular, is there anything about Erin Pizzey that you know that you thought you would share? I know that one thing that was kind of interesting, and I brought this up before, but I thought it was wild, is the actor Gerard Butler, when she got that prestigious award, that basically, do we have to call her Commander Pizzi? Is that kind of like when someone is knighted and you have to say sir? Is that what it is? She Commander Pizzi?
I don't think she would enforce it.
No, but it sounds cool. Commander Erin.
You just have to say Erin Pizzey CBE if you want to.
Erin Pizzey CBE. Yeah. So yeah, the actor Gerard Butler apparently had knew her from when he was a child, and he had a lot of nice things to say to her when she got that award, and he put it up on a video. Every so often I go dig it up and play it. And if you guys don't know who Gerard Butler is, he was Leonidas in 300. That's like the main thing he's known for. But yeah, so anyway, I thought that was really cool, and that you just don't know like whose life you can affect in one way or another. So Godspeed, Erin, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Maybe I'll get an interview this time. So, all right, let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. All right, next story. Try not to stare. All right, Allison put this one through, so I'm gonna read this out and then add a little bit of context, and maybe this will make sense. Okay, So there was a male stripper, pictured here, named Stuart Kennedy, 42, from Aberdeen, Scotland, that was found guilty of 2 counts of sexual assault at Perth Sheriff Court on September 30th, 2025, following an incident at a hen party on March 22nd, 2024. A hen party is like a, what is that, like a bachelorette party in the UK? I don't know what a hen party is, but it sounds like a bachelorette party.
Yeah, it's a bachelorette party. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, bachelorette party, hen party. I actually like the hen party. I like that. Dressed as a firefighter.
You say stag night, right? Do you have stag nights? Or you just
Stag.
have bachelor party?
Yeah, we mostly we just call them bachelor parties, but yeah.
Yeah,
For some reason we have
eliminated.
stags and hens.
Stags and hens. Yeah, stag parties, I think we'll call them. But that sounds like something from the old days. But anyway, so Gabriel asked me to play the Gerard clip. I'll look for it, and maybe if there's time, I'll play it at the end. But okay, so following an incident at a hen party on March 22nd, 2024, dressed as a firefighter in a Magic Mike style performance at Creef Hydro Hotel in Perthshire, Kennedy grabbed and jiggled the breasts of the 32-year-old bride-to-be, a solicitor, despite her repeatedly saying no thank you and visibly freezing in shock. He also forced her to drink from a penis-shaped straw, sat on her, and made her handle a fake penis as part of the act, which left the victim hysterical and vomiting afterward, according to the victim.
A penis-shaped straw?
Yeah, they make all kinds of little penis-shaped things for these parties. In fact, in the U.S., you can get penis candy. You can get penis candy molds and penis cake molds for bachelorette parties. It's it's a whole thing. And boobs, too.
Given how feminists like to complain that rockets are penis-shaped, I mean, anything that's it's a cylinder shape. It's like, so any straw is a penis-shaped straw, isn't it?
Well, no, they put a little head on it.
It has like a
head.
They put the whole shaft and head shape, and sometimes if you get the expensive ones, they'll have a little vein on the side and everything.
Do they complain about eating mushrooms because they're all basically penis-shaped, aren't they? Well, depending on how flared the head is, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So where was I? Yeah. So penis-shaped straw. And Kennedy denied the charges, claiming that he adapted his routine for her size, never touched her breasts, suggesting any movement came from her arm waving during a YMCA spoof, and that the performance was standard for such events, with no complaints from others, which apparently he had been doing for a very long time. However, Sheriff Paul Reed ruled the victim's corroborated account credible, stating the act crossed into criminal territory due to lack of consent. Sentencing was deferred. Kennedy was placed on the sex offenders registry and remained on bail, but a request to ban him from stripping was denied. This marks his second such conviction. The bride's sister, who hired him for £400, later called it a 100% mistake. And I looked into it a little bit more. Kennedy's defense said that essentially this is something that he's done many times, that it's an exaggeration of harmless fun in a rowdy, alcohol-fueled setting, potentially influenced by the solicitor's background or post-Me Too sensitivities. However, let me see. No counter evidence. There's no footage or video footage that emerged to undermine the prosecution. Notably, this is Kennedy's second conviction, with the court cited as aggravating, further eroding claims of isolated misrepresentation. Absent new appeals or disclosures, the judicial outcome stands as the most reliable indicator of events. So, okay, so now that I'm hearing the story, I think the issue is that there is only the testimony of the women that were involved, and even though he said he didn't touch her, they're just going with it, and the sheriff is just convicting it, and they're calling it sexual assault. So if you're a stripper, don't be. That's like maybe don't do that. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't know much about this guy or how he got to the point where he thinks it's okay to grope women in his professional capacity, allegedly. But from what I've learned about the way women tend to behave themselves during their hen nights, especially when uninhibited by chemical circumstance, it's not all that surprising to me that he may have reached the conclusion that physical touching is an acceptable boundary to cross in such circumstances. This is something that Alison and I covered in our review of the Magic Mike movie, all that something, and something that over the years we've touched upon, for want of a better phrase, where it has long been impressed upon everyone that you're not allowed to touch the man or woman who has been hired to dance provocatively about your person at such special events. Men tend to understand this rule. No matter how drunk those men might be, they generally understand the rule that even when this female stripper is grinding enthusiastically against your barely encased cock, you'd better not let your hands so much as brush the tip of the scant fabric that separates you from these women's bodies, lest you be ejected from the venue and potentially prosecuted. And women are taught the same rule at their hen nights, their bachelorette parties and whatnot. But they are less inclined to follow such rules. Women, especially drunk women, tend to approach these rules as a mere suggestion, and their decisions to skirt around such rules are perpetuated by the lack of enforcement therein. They're not going to get chucked out or prosecuted for these things. Like I said, I don't know anything about Stuart Kennedy or how long or how deep he's been buried in the business in which he's found himself. But if he's anything like any other male stripper, he's probably found himself groped and harassed and sexually assaulted by countless drunk women who will flagrantly eschew the boundaries they are supposed to respect because they, like everyone, have been taught that it is only women who should have any form of sexual boundaries, and that any man who is employed to tread those boundaries has altogether relinquished them. That is to say, in all probability, this man has probably performed in front of countless drunk women and has had his body, including his penis, grabbed and fondled with reckless abandon by countless women. Now, to some of you, that may sound like some kind of perk, like some kind of highlight of the day-to-day grind of your workday, but I invite you to imagine that it might not be after all, after it happening quite a lot of times. Do you know, it's very possible that Stuart Kennedy is gay. It's very possible that a disproportionate amount of professional erotic male dancers are gay. It's conceivable, isn't it? Given that heterosexual men tend to be rather reserved and they don't even like dancing, and gay men do. It's conceivable that rather a lot of professional erotic male dancers are in fact gay, and they only work hen nights for the money. And after many instances of being groped by hideous women night after night, they get it into their heads that it's okay for someone to grope the bodies of people they find unattractive. I cannot confirm any of this. After all, for the gay men who work these jobs as sex objects for drunk women, they're at a disadvantage if they ever admit that this whole process of arousing women is actually hideous for them. I mean, I have to wonder, how often does this happen? Gay men who are desperate for work find themselves performing like a dancing monkey for drunk idiot women, and then when they mistakenly try to play the part of the stereotype of a drunken heterosexual man, by groping some woman's boobs, they get sued and criminalized into oblivion, and they become yet another victim of the rudderless nonsense that drunken heterosexual women have inflicted upon us all. It says a lot, doesn't it? Potentially. It doesn't matter if you're gay. You're a man. Fuck you. Oh, but heaven forbid anyone fuck you or even think about it. Don't you dare touch me. I'm a woman. I'm here to touch you on my terms. Your terms are not a thing, you big gay fucking gamer word. I won't say it, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm on about in general.
All right, Hannah.
You know, it's interesting. This type of incident, it's kind of common, I guess, for bachelor parties or bachelorette parties or stag parties or hen parties or whatever. Somebody hires a stripper, or somebody hires a sex worker to come in, right? Female sex workers, among the things they have to worry about, getting falsely accused and convicted on the basis of just somebody's word and no physical evidence, no video evidence, no nothing. Getting falsely accused and treated as an offender for doing the job they were paid to do. That's not one of their normal worries, right? Even when the person that the sex worker was hired to come in and interact with is uncomfortable interacting with a sex worker, which does happen with men, especially in instances where the bride is going to get jealous, which happens a lot. Like, don't you dare hire a stripper for your bachelor party, or your soon-to-be wife might cancel the wedding if she finds out. She's going to be very upset. And if you ever, there was a movie with Tom Hanks, back in the 80s, I want to say, where that was kind of the theme, right? He really wasn't. He was reticent, and she was going to be mad at him for it. And but a hooker was hired, and that kind of storyline exists because that does happen to men in real life, where they really don't want necessarily to take the risk of being accused of infidelity to their soon-to-be life partner, and there isn't anything they can do because they also don't want to hurt the feelings of or offend the incoming sex worker. Like, they don't want to piss off any woman involved in the situation, and so it's if it's not your party, it might be better. Like, this woman's sister was the one that hired the sex worker to come in, and if it's not your party, and you know that the person that you're hiring for is maybe a little more conservative about their behavior than you are, don't try to force the issue, because stuff like this is likely to happen. And if it's a woman's party, she can't go after her sister for that, right? But maybe her husband to be is also the type that likes his bride to be a loyal bride to be, and not party with other men. Most guys, I think, are like that. Most guys don't want to know that the night before their wedding, some other guy had his hands all over their bride to be. Just like most women, I think, would prefer to know that the night before their wedding, some other gal didn't have her hands all over their groom to be. It's pretty standard stuff there, right? Which I didn't give my friends a chance to do this, by the way. There was no bachelorette party. I put the kibosh to that. I was like, you guys can throw one, but I'm not going to be there. That pretty much ended that discussion. But in any case, don't do that. Don't hire somebody on that night. There's plenty of other times to engage with this kind of partying if you're going to do that. But the night before the wedding, or the party before the wedding, the last hurrah before the wedding, not the best time to do that unless the guest of honor asks you to, and then you've got consent, right? But what would a woman do in that situation? Right? She can't yell at her sister because that's going to get her in trouble. She can't admit to her husband to be that she partied with a stripper right before the wedding. So what does she do when stories come out of what this guy was doing and what she was doing and everything? Oh, I didn't consent. I was upset. I feel victimized. This guy victimized me. I am a victim. I didn't do anything wrong because I am a victim. And I don't know if that's what happened or not, because we don't have video. We only have the word of the ladies. And of course, the sister's not going to admit she did anything wrong. The other ladies may or may not have been decent witnesses. They may or may not have been too drunk to know what was going on. And, they may or may not have their own guilt over, did I let something happen that shouldn't have happened? Did they push this woman into behaving in a way that was outside her norm while she was drinking and such? Like, we don't know. What's really reprehensible about this situation is that a sheriff, not even a judge, but a sheriff, got to rule based on the word alone of the women who paid this man to come in, that he did the things he was accused of doing, without any video, without any, nobody had their phones out, nothing, no evidence of bruising, no, like, if what happened matched up to what was said, in terms of handling of breasts and stuff, there would have been something. There would have been some sort of physical evidence afterward, especially if this guy was rough. And apparently there wasn't. So, and then they tried to get him banned from stripping. The other thing is, if they decided they didn't want to pay him and he insisted on collecting his fee, this might be the case as well. Because we know that the women have done that to cab drivers. I mean, cab drivers have had to start taking video of the inside of their cabs to avoid being Me Too'd. We don't know that that's what happened in this instance either. But those are two possibilities. And so this guy could be on the sex offender list for just doing his job, or he could be a sex offender and there's just no evidence, and we won't know. So like I said, it's best if you're having a celebration for a friend that's getting married, or a relative that's getting married, don't hire a stripper for that unless you have okayed it with the guest of honor. Because if you haven't, or you really know that the guest of honor is into that, because if you don't, you may be putting two people at least, through something very unpleasant, or worse.
I think I'm going to. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think I'm going to maximize the agency on the person who hired the stripper. Because if it was the sister, then odds are she knows what her sister likes and what they want to do. I don't think that her sister had no idea that there was going to be a stripper there. Like the actual woman who was the bride to be.
Yeah.
And I think that what happened was This guy is experienced. He's been doing this for I think he said he's doing it for at least 10 years or so. So he's not like new to this whole thing. He probably has a whole routine and it's just a job. He doesn't have like a special sexual attraction to this particular bride to be. You know, admit that maybe that's a little bit of a egocentric thing if you think about it. You know, if you've ever been to a strip club and you've actually seen strippers, they are there to give you it's like a waitress at Hooters. They're there to give you the illusion that you're special, but you're just a job. And they're going to like serve you as a customer and then they're going to move on to the next person, hopefully get a good tip out of it. The strippers are hoping to get some money, and that's basically it. I think that this guy is probably no different. He probably sees lots of clients and he does his thing and then he takes off and that's it. No attraction to that woman's not special is what I'm saying. So to treat it like a sexual assault assumes a lot from the man and not from the woman who paid for this, who probably knew what his routine was, most likely had a conversation about what he's expected to do, like how are you going to be dressed up, what do you have in mind, and she went along with it. And maybe the bride to be either found herself uncomfortable, but like that she wasn't more uncomfortable than she expected to be, and then decided to blame him and get him in trouble for it, or the sister pushed harder and harder and saw that she was making her sister uncomfortable and said, okay, we're just going to throw this guy under the bus instead of saying, hey, I made a bad call or whatever it is. Or neither of them, they could have just been like, yeah, you know what? That wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. Let's just like, here's your money. I don't want to see you again, and just go our separate ways. But the issue is that they took this to the legal place and he ended up on a sex offender registry and all this other stuff. And I just don't, I think that like, because the witness accounts are the other woman that was at the party, I don't think I can trust it, because it assumes that this guy who's been doing this a long time and has only had like one other complaint, according to, the story. And even then we don't know what the conditions of that were, that he, for whatever reason, just became like a sexual assaulter that night around those people, and they both agreed, and he just like has to deal with whatever. I mean, if something happened, then that's terrible, but I have this feeling, just based on what I'm seeing, that we're not getting the whole story. And because we're not getting the whole story, and there didn't appear to be like a real sort of pursuit of due process, it just kind of went to, okay, the sheriff said sounds credible to me, he's guilty, and we're just gonna go ahead and put that through, and it kind of ruined his life. So I mean, I go back to my original statement: if you're a stripper, then don't be, because I think that when you do things like that, it puts you in positions with unscrupulous people where unscrupulous things can happen to you because you're already in an environment where that kind of stuff is going on. But I think that I think that there's a lack of accountability somewhere. And I don't think it's on the stripper. That's basically where I'll leave it at for that. I don't know what Allison's thing was. She might have seen something different. I know she's been big on the rape and domestic violence stats lately. And I know that Mike brought up how often male strippers are manhandled compared to female strippers. Like, if you touch a female stripper, you get your ass kicked. Like, bouncers will descend on you and they will beat the shit out of you and throw you out. But like, male strippers, like we just assume that they're just going to expect to put up with some manhandling, especially with what happened at that Romanticy convention that we covered a couple weeks ago, where it wasn't even a stripper, it was a guy in like costume, and he got like assaulted by a mob of women, of which there were so many that he couldn't tell how many hands were on him. So, maybe that's kind of the direction. Again, I'm not going to make any definitive claims either way because we don't know enough, but I do have to wonder how the woman who paid for this guy and the woman whose bachelor party it was had no idea that something like this could happen. And they're just like completely shocked. And then I'm finding a little bit of a big pill to swallow. So Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Let me see if I got any super chows or super chats. Send in some super chows and super chats, guys. I am watching. Somebody became a seed. Thank you, not a feminist, for becoming a seed. I guess that's like a member on the YouTube channel. It's like a YouTube membership. So thank you for joining the community and becoming a member. All right. So
I will
found
point this out. What you were
Yeah.
talking about, that guy that got manhandled or woman handled that wasn't a stripper.
Yeah.
Periodically, you'll see a news story. The last one I saw came out of Australia, where a bachelorette party, the drinking and the giggling and all the screeching and all the shit that happens when a bunch of women get together and raise hell in somebody's home in a neighborhood will get so out of control and so loud that the cops will be called because of the noise. And they show up, and the minute that they're let into the domicile, whether it's a house, a condo, an apartment, doesn't seem to matter, the women assume that they're strippers because so many times that's a stripper costume, is the cop costume, where they start trying to tear their clothes off. And there've been the one that I saw out of Australia. They declined to arrest the women for that behavior, but did warn them about the noise and then left. But I have to wonder what it must be like to be a male cop getting sent into a situation like that, because you're not a sex worker as a male cop. You're just going there to say, hey, your neighbors would really like you to tone it down a bit. We know you're having a good time, but there are noise ordinances and people have to go to work tomorrow. Please keep it to a dull roar. And suddenly there's a bunch of women around you tearing your clothes off, and you can't, like if the cops tase in that situation or they shoot somebody in that situation, they're going to be demonized for it, right? But can you imagine if a female cop showed up at a bachelor party and the men started doing that? Nobody would condemn her for those same types of actions, tasing or shooting or arresting people. So there is a huge double standard there. And women do make claims when they're embarrassed that they did something that maybe they wouldn't have done if they hadn't been drinking, or if their sister hadn't hired a stripper, or something like that. And then the guy who expects them to be loyal and clean finds out.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a super chow from Meredith G. $5. Thank you, Meredith. HBR News number 522. Honey for the Badgers. There has long been a problem for male strippers and female patrons groping in clubs. In a clubs for females, if a patron even touches a performer, they will get kicked out. So don't be surprised that you are in higher risk when performing at a home. Yeah, and again, the guy is not claiming to have been a victim of any assault. But unfortunately, the women made a claim against him, and it seems to have hurt him significantly. We don't know if it's true or not. I'm just saying it's fishy to me.
Yeah, it does happen. It does.
Yeah.
Not him assaulting her, but him being a victim of assault. Everything that female strippers that go to people's homes and female prostitutes that go to people's homes are at risk of, male prostitutes and male strippers are too. It's just that this is another on top of that risk, that somebody might hire them to come in and perform some type of sex work, and then me too them for taking it too far or otherwise doing sex work that they were hired to do.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. And then I got a super chat from Albert Nada Retro, who gives us $5 Canadian and says, there was an incident at one of the Disney theme parks where a guy dressed as Gaston had a woman removed from grabbing him. I remember that. That was a old viral clip of
and people acted like he was unreasonable for that. But imagine if somebody came up and did that to, say, Belle or Pocahontas.
Yeah, well, they have to draw a line. They have to maintain it, though, because if you permit that, then it's just only going to get worse. So anyway, thank you for the super chats. And I found the Gerard Butler post. This is Gerard Butler congratulating Erin Pizzey on her award. and I think he's drunk, so bear with him, but he does have nicest things to say. So I'm going to play this.
Erin, hello. This is Jerry Butler. I'm a very dear friend of your son Amos. He's like my best mate. We would often say a brother from another mother, which makes you my mother. So, Mum, I'm concerned because I know you've been going through it, but I love you. We love you, and you're going to do great. Get you back on your feet. Thinking about you. I'm sending you love. You're the best. I always hear about your antics through Amos, and I have just nothing but the utmost love and respect for who you are and what you've achieved and where you are right now. So we've got to get you back out in the biker gang, and congratulations on the CBE. That's amazing. And I know that's this summer, so I've just invited myself to that. I'm inviting you out in the biker gang with Amos and I. So there's fun times to come ahead. Tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to leave you a message as Stoic the Bast, the Viking. You probably won't appreciate the second message, but you'll like the outfit. So I'll do it for that reason. Try and come up with something different. But anyway, I hope I get to hug you soon and hang out with you again. And I'm sending you loads of love. God bless. Take care. Stay strong. Stay focused. Because you got so much more to give to us guys. Okay. Take care.
All right. So that was Gerard Butler's message to Erin. I think that, and Erin made a comment, I don't know if you saw this, but she said, "My lost boy who I have adopted," on, this was on 2024 February. So that's when I saw this, and I was kind of blown away by that. But yeah, Gerard Butler recognizing Erin Pizzey. Pretty cool. So, didn't know that. To have a whole new respect for Butler. Yeah, I didn't know that either. And apparently he talks. I mean, is it not true that Erin got that commendation because of her work with domestic violence and the fact that she explicitly and openly was trying to not make it into a feminist issue or like a gender ideology issue, and just a holistic one, like, there's abuse, it exists, men do it, women do it, men are victims, women are victims, right? And that is the contentious thing. What?
It's almost certain that she got it because she pioneered women's rights.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
So much that the British state had to overlook her men's rights advocacy, and because she pioneered women's rights advocacy, like I said, no other men's rights advocate is ever going to be given an MBE, never mind a CBE.
Yeah,
it's MBE, then OBE, then CBE. That's the lowest to the middle, and then the upper. Above that is knighthood / damehood.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so she had the third greatest of the BE things, and like I say, it's almost certainly because of her work towards women's rights. Like the British state was almost certainly as confused as most feminists are as to how she went into men's rights advocacy after that, and they just overlooked that. It's like, well, that doesn't matter. The fact is
true.
She made an effort towards women's rights, and that's what's important. It's going to be a long time before anyone can recognize what anyone does towards men's rights. I mean, because that's not a thing. Right?
No. Not certainly from those, but I think if you know Erin personally, which Gerard Butler seems to know her very well, then he must know that she's also done the heresy, and he probably is okay with it. I mean, he seems to be. So, I mean, I'm not saying that like the greater public recognizes this and that's why she got the award, but I do think that it must be the case, in my opinion, that Gerard Butler knows her enough to know what she's actually about, on top of the stuff that she's getting recognition for, and it doesn't seem to bother him. In fact, he still, is very happy for her. So I don't know. What I'm saying is, I think there's a lot more people that are more red-pilled than they let on, and they just kind of like keep it under wraps because it isn't popular, or at least they don't think it is. And I think that's understandable. But anyway, we got to move on. I just wanted to share that because Gabriel was insisting. I hope you're happy now. And we did that. So thank you. And we're going to move on to the next story. All right. I thought this was huge. So the United States Federal Bureau of Investigations, under the leadership of Director Kash Patel, have officially split ways with the Southern Poverty Law Center. The SPLC began in the early 70s and grew to fame in the 80s for filing multiple civil suits on behalf of victims of violence from the Ku Klux Klan. They later branched out into helping other victims of discrimination as well. However, in the modern day, their function is questionable. In 2019, the SPLC fell for a troll campaign to get the OK hand gesture labeled as white supremacist. Recently, their so-called hate map, which is a list of all hate groups operating in the United States, has been called into question. The map lists the late Charlie Kirk's conservative youth organization, Turning Point USA, as well as pro-men's rights group A Voice for Men, alongside the Aryan Brotherhood and the KKK. Director Patel called the map defamatory to mainstream Americans and that it was inspiring violence. Furthermore, Director Patel said, referring to the SPLC as a whole, their disgraceful record makes them unfit for any FBI partnership. Director Patel has also announced a similar split with the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. Former FBI Director James Comey disgraced the FBI by writing love letters to the ADL and embedding agents with an extreme group functioning like a terrorist organization and the disgraceful operation they ran spying on Americans. So that's big. Okay, so anyway, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Anybody?
If Mike's not going to jump in, yeah, I'm going to point out. Oh, you have something?
I'm going to let you go first. I have some dark thoughts that I think I'm not going to overlap with you. So please go first.
I'm going to point out this isn't the first time, right? It's just the worst time. Right? And there have been other organizations that have faced repercussions or attacks where there's been some sort of action taken against them up until what happened to Charlie Kirk. The worst one was also gun violence. I say gun violence, but the individual holding the gun was the violent person. The gun was just the tool that they used. This was Floyd Corkins, motivated by the SPLC's hate map, attacked the Family Research Council's headquarters because they were listed as an anti-gay hate group. They're simply a Christian organization. So because they're a Christian organization, they were listed as an anti-gay hate group, and that alone was enough to get this guy to go after them. And he did shoot and wound a security guard at their headquarters. So there was actually an attack with a deadly weapon on an individual. That was in 2012. And there was a lawsuit and everything. And the SPLC, of course, came out afterwards and condemned the attack and all that. But what they've essentially a hit list. And their hit list features anybody who complains, basically, about being discriminated against on the basis of not having victim points from the progressive stack. And also, they've sprinkled in a few other organizations that have advocated for violence and stuff, but they mainly feature organizations that complain about discrimination on the basis of not having enough victim points from the progressive stack, and any group that is too Christian or any group that is too Republican. That's it. They're not really a hate watch group. They're a hate list group that has a list of who to hate and who to attack.
All right. Mike?
Fuck me, that was quick. Okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, no, this all seems suspiciously like good news. I'm I'm generally suspicious of anything that seems like bad news, but I'm highly suspicious of good news. I'm kind of irrationally fearful of it, actually. It's a condition called euphobia, the fear of good news. I wrote a song about it once, way back in the day. It's on my album, The Name with No Band, available on Bandcamp. But yeah, it's not necessarily an irrational fear. Good news has this nasty habit of arousing hope only to dash it on the rocks of disappointment, leaving you feeling worse than you felt before. Now you're not just cynical, you're disappointed. You feel like a fool as well as a fugitive. In short, good news usually only temporarily dips you into a false sense of security. And to be honest, that's the FBI in a nutshell. It's any given country's government intelligence agencies in a nutshell. It's supposed to offer security, but it seems to descend into yet another tormentor, yet another reason to look over your shoulder. Back in November of last year, I did indeed find myself embroiled in optimism. I sang in elated harmony about how things are going to get better, at least in the USA. my own country still faces at least another 4 years of unbridled hell. So I distracted myself with promises of improvement in my second favorite nation, the USA. And of course, I faced detractors who scoffed at my optimism and tried to dissuade me from any hope that things would get better. And then came the debacle with the Epstein list. And I couldn't help but think, well, shit. Maybe my detractors were right. It's happening again. I swallowed a white pill, and sure enough, my stomach is rumbling, and I think I'm going to throw up that white pill and go back to feeling like shit. But now we're getting some good news. It looks like another opportunity to take a white pill. Antifa has been declared a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, the SPLC and the ADL have been rejected as arbiters of what should be declared hate groups. This is what we wanted. This is what we've been pushing for since 12 years ago. Maybe I should be happy. Maybe I should take this as motivation to keep pushing. Maybe even to demand some kind of apology from these half-assed chain gang drama llama think tanks after all these years of defamation and incitement to violence. Maybe I should be gloating over my detractors, going, see, things are getting better. I was right to be optimistic. But the older I get, the more I realize that it's not about optimism or pessimism. It's not about blind cynicism or blind glory supporting. It's about impulse control. The whiplash you experience between hope and despair is what's bad for your health and bad for unity. Getting thrashed around in the turbulent waves of caprice is what is to be avoided. They say no man is an island, and it's true. Nor woman neither, of course. But you can do your best to anchor yourself as best you can to experience the optimism and the pessimism both as waves in the ocean and to be able to resist them in any direction until the time when more information can temper your reaction. Some call it stoicism. Some call it Zen. Whatever you call it, it seems to be what comes with wisdom. That's the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is the speed at which you can travel when assisted by the wind. Wisdom is your ability to resist the wind and move without its assistance. And that's why I'm so lazy, folks. That's my excuse for being so fucking lazy. I'm waiting. I'm sat here in the lotus position, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, like some kind of coiled python hiding under a bush. I'm not hiding because I'm afraid. I'm hiding because I'm preserving my energy. I'm no longer interested in hunting mice and rats. I'm old enough and big enough and ugly enough to know that sooner or later a medium-sized herbivore is going to cross my path, and then I will strike, and I will eat heartily and be satiated for some time. Yes, I am a reptile now. It's a strange paradox that as we progress forwards into old age, we regress backwards through our evolutionary history. I suppose the next step is amphibian, followed by fish, followed by some kind of sea sponge, followed by single-celled organisms. I'm fascinated to see where that's going to play out. Watch this space. Needless to say, none of this is evolutionary advice. I'm not a real paleontologist.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I would say remain cautiously optimistic. I think that it's fine to not get worked up into a tizzy about all the winning and just say, it looks like we're going in the right direction. Remember, we're trying to undo generations of damage in like record time. So it's not going to happen overnight. And but it is something that we should encourage if we see that it's moving in the right direction. And that's all I think we can do. And I think that's why this is looking good. But I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm not going to say anything else about it. I got a couple of super things to read out, but if you guys have any thoughts on this, let me know in the comments. Master Rowe gave us $2 super chat and says, just saw the title, not our resident legend. Well, she is 86, and but she isn't. She's still with us right now. But just keep her in your thoughts, and if you can, try to reach out, send her an encouraging message, let her know that you're thinking about her. I'm sure that she'd love to hear that, and it's never too late. I mean, it can be, but it's not yet. I'll say that. So thank you. Meredith G gives us $5 super chow and says, HBR News 522, there is an original donor of Erin's Refuge who claims that Erin Pizzey's book was partially based on the real-life story of Princess Diana's parents' marriage and that she extended help to Diana's mother. Wow, that is crazy. You know what? I forget how small England is. And so, like, it is a small place. You can, like, run into famous people if they live there, I suppose. So, but thank you, Meredith, for that. Okay. So I think that's all we have. And we're going to move on to the next story. So let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. So Elon Musk had some choice words when he ignited a fierce online debate on September 30th, publicly urging his 227 million X followers to cancel their Netflix subscriptions, framing it as essential for the health of their children. The controversy erupted after Musk amplified a post from the account Libs of TikTok criticizing Netflix's animated series Dead End Paranormal Park, a rated TV 7 for ages 7 and up, which features a transgender teenage protagonist coming out to a friend. And I'm going to play that clip for you. This is the actual post. And Libs of TikTok shared this. And this show has been on the air for a long time, for I think 2 years or something like that.
No sound.
You guys can't hear anything? All right, hold
Nope.
on. Yeah, you're right. Okay, let me I'll have to like start it over. Hold on a second. Just take me a second. Sorry about that. I don't know why it does this. Sometimes like a bug with this this app, but okay. Let's play it again.
It's not the park.
Yay.
It's me. I'm trans, Norma. And everyone at school knows, and everyone at home knows. And being here, it's like a whole new place. I can just be Barney, and I can choose if and when I tell people. I've never been happier. And that's saying something when I spent today chased by terrifying zombie mascots. Pugsley reminded me how important it is to live your life without apology. So I think I gotta give living here a shot, don't you?
You don't need my permission. I just wouldn't want Courtney as a roommate. We'll be the best of...
All right. And I have a couple more examples so you guys can see it. So this is I guess a remade Strawberry Shortcake. I remember Strawberry Shortcake as a kid in the 80s. I mean, obviously it wasn't for me, but my sister was into it. So here is a clip from a new Strawberry Shortcake. There's a trans dress, in case you guys aren't seeing it. Is the trans flag on it.
Like cotton candy clouds floating in a blue sky. Banafi will slide that runway. Banafi, tell us why you chose this delicious dress.
As a transberry, I love living out loud as my most authentic
She's a
self.
transberry.
And I wanted to dress as bold and unique as I am, which, let's face it, is a tall order.
Okay. And then I got one more. This is from a different show. I think it's like a young adult show or like a teenager show.
It took a while, but we finally found a file for a Bailey Del Vecchio. Is 32 Burn Hill Road still the current address? Yeah. Have you been giving him fluids? If he's dehydrated, we'll need to place an IV. Have him change into this.
He, him, he.
Well...
I hear Solo's not feeling well. Just take a look at the little man.
I love how the dialogue is intentionally triggering. Let's look at that little man.
To that side? I know that you guys are busy, but as you would see, if you looked at her and not her chart, Bailey is not a boy. And by treating her like one, you are completely ignoring who she is. You're making her feel insignificant and humiliated. And that's not gonna help her feel good or safe or calm. So, from here on out, please recognize her for who she is. And if at all possible, could you find me a non-blue hospital gown?
I apologize.
Aren't they all blue? All right, so anyway, let's get back to this. So there's a number of examples, and they're all on Netflix, although Netflix isn't the only group guilty of this. But this is what, this is the specific story we're talking about, is Elon Musk's comments on that. So anyway, criticizing Netflix's animated series Dead End Paranormal Park, which features a transgender teenage protagonist coming out to a friend. Musk reposted the clip with the comment, "This is not okay," accusing the show of pushing pro-transgenderism on children, and quickly escalated by calling the creator Hamish Steele a groomer over alleged mocking of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's recent murder. So on top of that, they celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. He followed up with over 24 posts in 3 days targeting other shows like The Babysitter's Club, Coco Melon, Ada Twist, Scientist, and Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City for featuring LGBTQ plus characters, interracial gay parents, or drag elements, labeling them as woke indoctrination and sexualized content. The backlash has polarized responses. Conservative supporters, including actor Rob Schneider and activist Robbie Starbuck, hailed Musk as a defender against evil trans indoctrination, with some users sharing screenshots of their cancellations and memes depicting Netflix as a Trojan horse invading family homes. Progressive critics like Pod Save America co-host Tommy Vader accused Musk of hypocrisy for a self-styled free speech absolutist to embrace cancel culture against diverse representation. LGBTQ plus advocates and outlets like Erin in the Morning, decried the campaign as an attempt to erase queer visibility in media that reflects real families, noting the targeted shows' positive intent for young audiences. Netflix has not commented, but its stock has dipped 2 to 5% in early October amid the uproar, echoing past conservative boycotts like those over Dave Chappelle's specials. I don't think those were conservatives that were boycotting Dave Chappelle. I think those were trans activists, but okay. Though analysts doubt lasting subscriber impact given the platform's 300 million global users. Musk's personal history, including his estrangement from his transgender daughter, Vivian Jenna Wilson, has fueled speculation about the intensity of his focus on these themes, which Musk himself has said they basically killed my son. And that maybe this is personal for him, but nonetheless, I guess like this could be a challenging thing because, I mean, I think that this is grooming, and I don't think that it should be allowed. Like, I'm not saying that gays can't exist or trans people can't exist, but when you're creating a show for 7-year-olds and you are talking about sexual orientation, you are necessarily talking about sex, and I don't think that kids need to be exposed to that. I shared, there was also a Jurassic Park show for children. I don't know what it was called, but it's some Jurassic Park themed cartoon, and there was a lesbian long kiss in it. There were two women that admitted they had a crush, and they basically necked on screen. And I said, is there a place for lesbian long kissing in children's entertainment? And someone commented and yelled at me about like how Disney movies have kissing too, and I was like, well, I don't care if they get rid of that as well, but there is a difference between the kiss of true love, which has like a symbolic message, and that's usually what the old Disney movies were doing, and something that is, I think, just, I mean, it's just sexual. Like, it's just sexual implicitly, and that's something that we can't really ignore. So, but I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? I give you the floor to you.
I picture the scene, if you will. Imagine if the trans ideology being taught to children through Netflix was already being taught to them in school. This sounds crazy, doesn't it? It sounds like the kind of thing that would follow from it being taught to children through Netflix, through the medium of voluntary persuasion, that you are permitted to simply switch off and stop paying for as and when you see fit. But you probably know where I'm going with this. It has, in fact, happened the other way around. The reason Netflix seems to think it's perfectly okay to teach children to be transgender is because it's already being taught in schools. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in the syllabus itself, but sometimes because school administrations have neglected to fire the teachers who have taken it upon themselves to propagate trans ideology to their students, regardless of the syllabus. As much as it's long overdue for this conversation to take place over the subject of Netflix, and only on account of a mover and shaker like Elon Musk bringing it up, if anything, it's too little too late. Although I suppose that's the only option at this point. Elon's not playing 4D chess. If anything, he's playing 1D chess. He's starting at the furthest point to which it's been taken and working his way back. So I really hope once he's convinced a few million people to unsubscribe from Netflix, he starts addressing where the fuck this came from in the first place. First, it was in universities and obscure independent films. Then it was in schools and in broadcast media. And now it's in kindergarten and subscription services like Netflix. Personally, I think it should be perfectly okay for trans ideology to be promoted on Netflix or any independent product that doesn't appear on any of your screens unless you pay for it. That's not even an extremist libertarian perspective. If you don't want your kids seeing it, don't pay them to show it to your kids. Problem solved. That's as I said, that's the 1D chess end of the issue. It's very simple. But the next step is, if you don't want your kids being coerced and brainwashed into trans ideology, then don't let them watch TV. Well, that's a little bit more complicated, isn't it? TV is already being beamed into your homes by satellite. You don't even have to pay for a subscription. Those electromagnetic waves are already in your house. All you need is an aerial receiver to translate those waves into an audio-visual feed. But sure, at least you have the option of not even having a television that your child can turn on and tune in and watch when you're not looking. But when it comes to schools, you might say, well, we have the option of not sending our children to those schools where their worldview is being taught to them by pangender, furry, otherkin teachers who will teach your children to be pangender, otherkin furries. And for some reason, they never get fired for teaching your children this. That would be nice. It would be great if we had the option of not sending our children to these degenerate indoctrination centers. But unfortunately, in many states, in many countries, it is illegal to neglect to send your children to these degenerate indoctrination centers. If you refuse to subject your children to these mutated communist indoctrination camps for 7 hours a day for 12 years of their most informative years, your government will confiscate your children and they will arrest you for the crime of not sending them to these indoctrination camps. And call me crazy, but I think this is a significantly more urgent problem than whatever the fuck Netflix is doing. And I really hope Elon Musk is going to get around to this at some point. Never mind the stigma against homeschooling children. I would rather people pull their children out of school and then don't even homeschool them. To receive no education is better than to receive miseducation. Like, as long as your children aren't going to school every day and getting brainwashed by state propaganda, you can go ahead and let them sit there in front of YouTube all day, every day, learning whatever YouTube tells them. Hell, you can even let them listen to Netflix every day and absorb whatever propaganda they find there. It can't possibly be any worse than what they're learning in school. Because, to repeat, Netflix is merely following the school curriculum that has been in place for years already. The same way schools have been following the curriculum that has been in place for decades already. To reiterate, school is mandatory in many states and regions. Netflix is not in any state or region. So I have to tell you, Elon, even though I'm jolly certain you're not listening to me, and after all, you and I have never hugged in mutual recognition, Elon. Nevertheless, for rhetorical effect, I have to tell you, when you're quite done enacting this scorched earth policy on Netflix, can you please turn your attention to the education system? Because, frankly, Netflix is just a barnacle hanging onto the underbelly of the blue whale that is the education system. Can you at least begin to propagate the notion that parents should not be legally obligated to indoctrinate their children into this bullshit in the first place? I'm sure you're just taking this one chess dimension at a time, but please, bro, it's already high time you brought it to the second dimension of chess, otherwise known as chess. Like, stop attacking pawns and start attacking the king. It's the first rule of chess. Needless to say, I'm not that. Actually, I am good at chess. This is actually chess advice. I am an actual doctor of chess. Fucking ignore me at your peril. Ignore me.
I'm gonna go a bit of a different direction with this, but I'm also going to say this isn't just about Netflix, right? And I'm gonna go back in time again. I feel like I'm doing that a lot lately. So, of course, during the 80s, it started to become a little popular to somewhat, politically correct at least, to support gay rights activism, at least to the degree of, geez, leave them the fuck alone, right? Stop bothering these people. They're not doing anything to anybody. Stop, beating up on them. Stop going after their jobs. Stop trying to chase them out of neighborhoods and so on. They just are a little different, and people know because I've talked about it more recently that I'm bisexual, but I didn't have an identity for that when that happened. I just understood that I was a little bit different and these other people are a little bit different. I didn't admit, even though I'd already had my first girlfriend, that was a thing, right? So, yeah, I got involved in. At the time, it was just gay rights activism a little bit, not heavily. And then in the 90s, I met people that were more connected to it, got a little more involved. And about the mid 90s, I think the first time I heard somebody go on a rant that in order for gay, lesbian, and bisexual people to have normal lives, the family needed to be broken down and all social norms needed to be erased and blah, blah, blah. And the first time I had that conversation, that argument with somebody where I said, you don't have to push abnormality on other people as the new norm in order to argue that there's a difference between abnormal and evil. And the difference being you can be abnormal if you're, say, a genius, but that's not evil, right? You can be abnormal if you're a virtuoso in some area of skill, and that's not normal, right? But it's not evil. And you can be intellectually disabled. That's not normal either, but it's not evil. There's nothing inherently moral or amoral or immoral about those things. You can believe in a very different religion than other people that's completely harmless and be abnormal. You can be an atheist and be completely harmless and be abnormal. Not to be confused with anti-theism that wants to destroy religion, which is harmful. But you don't have to be just like everybody else to be okay. Wasn't enough of a message for these people because it really was never about gay and lesbian rights. It was never about bisexual rights. It was never about treating people who are a little abnormal the same as everybody else in terms of human rights and humanitarian treatment. It was about getting rid of what is normal and getting rid of the connections that people make with each other and the boundaries that people have where, you say, all right, this far, but no further in terms of controlling your life, your speech, your family, your property, your children. And it sort of started mid 90s where you'd occasionally see something, this person is gay or that person, is supposed to be gay. Maybe that character's gay and that character seems a little gay but they're likable, right? And so you're supposed to like them. And there were more shows that came out that sort of started pushing the boundaries of well, what will you tolerate? What will you tolerate? And at first, it just seemed like it was, trying to get across the message. Again, leave these people alone. They're not doing anything to you. Right? They're just doing things with each other in their own homes. Consensual adults, leave them alone. But over the years, the extremist end of what at the time was the gay rights movement that morphed from gay rights to rainbow to GLBT to LGBT, and so on, with the whole alphabet jumping in eventually. It started to become, you're not allowed to refuse to participate. You're not allowed to have a boundary. You're not allowed to be not like us. You're not allowed to have your own identity. And this is what they're doing with these shows. When my kids were growing up, we did not have cable because cable was one of the sources of this kind of bullshit. So everything that my kids watched at home was curated. And it wasn't just my home. My husband's ex-wife was the same way. They didn't sit around at their mom's house and watch a bunch of pop culture bullshit either. Like my stepdaughters grew up on VeggieTales, stuff like that was designed to at least be innocent and wholesome and not a bunch of weird shit. And my son grew up on YouTube. I suppose some people would think it was weird shit. We watched things like The Tick, and we watched bunch of old TV shows and cartoons that I already was familiar with. We watched movies that we picked out from when my husband and I were growing up. Like, we must have watched The Goonies 1,000 times. And so, that's the kind of thing that the kids grew up on. They still had exposure to pop culture, but they had that baseline of, we're watching something mom and dad wouldn't like, and they had a little resistance to it here and there. They had quite a bit of resistance to some things. And they understood when something was pushing on their boundaries, and not just preachy. It's not just a matter of being preachy, right? It stopped being just preachy when you started getting accused of isms and phobias for exercising your right to decide whether to consent or refuse. And that includes whether or not you're dating somebody of the same sex, biological sex, whether or not you're expected to have an attraction to somebody who is obese or unattractive. And those aren't necessarily always the same thing. Whether or not you stay within the bounds of your own race when you're dating people, and so on. That stopped being about anyone's human rights, and it stopped being about leave these people alone when it became, but they don't have to leave you alone. You're not allowed to say no. You're not allowed to refuse to use these pronouns. You're not allowed. And that's where we are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to Netflix, sure, they're doing the same thing, right? They're trying to indoctrinate people's kids. And I usually would just tell people, you need to curate what your kids are seeing. They're going to hear about this at school. They're going to see it at other people's houses. All right. I to this day, one of the few movies that still gives me nightmares was The Exorcist. We weren't allowed to watch that. Jaws was another one. We weren't allowed to watch that. We went over to our buddy's house and saw it, right, when I was a kid. Wasn't allowed to watch when I was 2, but I sneaked out of my room when my parents had it on TV, and I, to this day, hate porcelain dolls. Don't ever make me stay in the same room alone with one.
Yeah.
You know, so your kids are going to have these influences, and it is 100% fair for people to boycott based on this. Nobody's obligated to pay you to tell them you're not allowed to have boundaries. Your boundaries constitute isms and phobias, and your boundaries we're going to continue to attack until you lose them. Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is it stopped being about consenting adults the moment children were targeted. Back in the 90s, when they started inserting this activism into children's programming. And Gen X's parents, the boomers, didn't notice, or it wasn't so open and obvious to them that they would notice. Right? It stopped being about consenting adult, and it hammered home that it was not about consenting adults. Every time this movement has insisted on a right to break down your children's boundaries. They always want to target the next generation and the next. They may not be able to fully get rid of an adult generation's boundaries, right? An adult generation already has those established and already can say, I will tolerate this, I'm okay with this, or I will not tolerate this, I'm not okay with this. But children still have enough plasticity to their brain. They're still developing to the degree that you can trick children, you can groom children into not forming certain boundaries. The boundary where they decide, I have a right to decide what speech I will use and what speech I will not use. Right? I have a right to decide who I want to date, who I'm not going to date. I have a right to decide whether or not to buy this service or product, and I can say no to it. So for all that you've heard from the left, from feminists, from communists, from the LGBT, LMNOP movement, that it's about consent, it's about erasing consent. And that doesn't mean that I'm not bisexual anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't support leave these people alone if they're not doing anything to you. It means I don't support going after other people's children and erasing their boundaries so that they will tolerate whatever the state does to them later on, which is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, people think, that pedos are the ultimate goal here. That is not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to get your children primed to accept a digital ID and a social credit system wherein the state tells them right down to whether or not they are allowed to own a game console, what they may and may not do, by deciding that if they do things the state doesn't like, they're not going to go to jail per se, but they're not allowed to pay for a taxi or for an exit from the gates of their 15-minute city where they live and work, if work still exists. Or maybe they don't have access to that universal basic income that the state gives them in digital currency that they can't hold in their hand and they can't withdraw from their bank because they bought the wrong thing, which is what it's like to live in China. If you buy a game console instead of a washing machine, it affects your social credit. if you say the wrong thing online, it affects your social credit. And this is actually about that, and it has absolutely nothing to do with leave these people alone, they're not doing anything to you. It has everything to do with you're not allowed to say no, and you're not even allowed to think it. And if you can't be manipulated into forgetting that you have a right to refuse or consent, then your children are the next target. Someday you're going to get old, right? Someday you're not going to be able to fight back. And if they won't fight for you, then you're fucked and they're fucked. And that's the real deal.
This is what I meant by euphobia, about the fear of good news. Because this is what late Gen Xers and early millennials had in common. We all thought the 90s was great, that nothing bad happened in the 90s. But this is the point. We were all presented with this idea that nothing bad was happening in the 90s. But in the meantime, the worst possible shit was happening in universities, and it was spreading into schools at the time. Because we were all sat around eating pizza and playing rock music like this would be our future forever. This is gonna be great. But in the meantime, the communists were fucking working their way through the universities. That if you just let your guard down and assume that it's going to be this way forever, then shit's going to happen to you 20 years in your future. And it fucking did happen. And this is what I mean. When you let your guard down, when you assume that everything's just going to be great forever, then you invite the bullshit that's going to happen, and it's happening now. So, like we like to think, and this is something that ought to unite the Gen Xers and the millennials, and I wish it would. But in this day and age, we find the Gen Xers fighting with the boomers and the millennials, and we really ought not to, because it's nothing to do with generations. It's to do with this communist madness that's been fighting its way through our institutions. Pardon. It started with the boomers, and it got worse in Generation X, and it got worse in the millennials, and it will get worse with the Zoomers, and indeed the Alphas. It will all get worse if we don't fucking knuckle down and figure out that no, this is a phenomenon that's only going to get worse with every generation. And we should have learned this in the 90s while we were all sat around listening to subversive rock music and eating pizza. Like, no, the fact that we thought everything was all right was what let our guard down and let the communists invade the universities. Indeed, the schools. It was indeed the schools at the time, as any of us might remember. It got through to the universities in the 60s, and it was in the 90s that it got through to schools, and now in the 2020s it's getting through to kindergarten. That's how deep the termites have dug. And now we're wondering how normal people think it's all right to celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk and so on. And I'm like people often ask me, how has it got this bad? And I'm like, because people have been taught this shit from kindergarten. That's because we've let it get that far, and because we assumed it was normal, even from the earliest of our ages. And it's not just in the last 10 years. I mean, those of us who have been talking about this shit for the last 10 years like to wax lyrical that it's only been this bad for the last 10 years. But no, it's been this bad since the 90s. But we distract ourselves in the 90s. We assumed that everything was fine. We assumed that this was the best period in history. But no, it's been getting worse and worse since the 60s. Well, it's been getting worse and worse since the 1920s, politically speaking. But it's been getting worse and worse since 1,000 years ago, since the advent of romantic chivalry. And it's very difficult to get that across to people in the modern age. Well, it's been happening for 1,000 years. No, yeah, it's been happening for 1,000 years. No, yeah, it has. It's just only been politicized by feminism in the last 100 years. And I don't know how I get this across to people without developing a channel that's been trying to convince people of this for the last 12 years. And yeah, here we are. Here we are right now, trying to get it across to people that it's been getting worse for the last 1,000 years. How do we even? How do I even? How does anyone even? I guess
I don't know.
That's what we're here to try and get across.
Right.
Good luck, everyone.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's time to stop evening and odd.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so I got another super chow, and then we're going to get to the next thing, which is going to the patron show. So, someone named Itsy Bitsy Huntsman gave us $5 and then $50. I don't know what the 50 is for. I don't know if that was a mistake. I hope it wasn't. Really appreciate the support. And says none of that should be anywhere, any children's media. I guess near any children's media. Not only is it brainwashing, but bloody hell, it's a blind, deaf Victorian orphan could write better than that slop. Yes, I agree. It's terrible writing. I mean, it is made for kids, but you know, when I was growing up, and I'm not going to drag this out too long because we're over time. We used to have PSAs at the end of cartoon shows, and they were common sense things like, you know, don't leave the stove on when you're cooking. Make sure that you're listening to the fire alarm. Don't play in the street. You know, it was like common sense. Yeah, don't touch power lines, right? Don't eat candy bars. Try eating fruit instead. Like they had these PSAs at the end of cartoons like He-Man and G.I. Joe, and they were common sense things that were useful. You know, now shows are all PSAs and they're all pushing trans ideology, intersectional feminism, and other woke garbage. Which, if you think about it, the fact that I'm mentioning the PSAs I watched growing up tells you that I actually absorbed that information. And I remember those PSAs, and I remember thinking about them a lot, and they did have an effect, especially on a child, right? So can you imagine?
Were a PSA. There was an episode.
Oh, sure. Captain Planet, Fat Albert.
Yeah, no, not. I mean, I don't mean Captain Planet. There was an episode of Punky Brewster about taking the door off of your refrigerator. That stuck with me so strongly that when my parents passed away and my son was staying at their house trying to get things straightened out, and their refrigerator went bad and he put it out in the garage. Like, he put it out in the evening, and I made him go back out there in the dark with a flashlight and take the door off of the refrigerator because I just couldn't stand the idea that it might be in a closed garage with the door still on it and some kid might break in there. Like, those PSAs really did stick with you, and it does show you like how influential that stuff can be, even when an individual is not necessarily all that young when they see it.
Right. And that, so like my point is, like, these things are not ineffectual on children, because the healthy messages that we got as kids, they definitely stuck with us, and then we got rid of them, and that would have been okay for not the fact that we replaced it with something else. So that's where we are now. But anyway, look, I really got to wrap it up there. Thank you for the super chats and stuff, guys. And thank you to Hannah and Mike for joining me on the show. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Do you remember PSAs on your shows growing up? What do you think about this kind of content? I know that we've been talking about this stuff on Netflix for a long time and other sort of streaming services, so it's not new to us, but it is telling that it's going really mainstream now. So that is something worth considering. Anyway, thanks guys for coming on the show today. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed in the show today, and please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. We're going to be heading off now to the Patreon show to talk about the Gina Davis Institute. So hopefully we'll see you guys there. And yeah, thanks guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will see you next Tuesday. Oh, no, wait, actually not. We're going to see you on Wednesday. We're moving things around.
What?
Just next week. Yeah,
Well,
Hannah needs to do something. But okay, bye guys.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.